countdown is on, but you're not alone. This is Countdown to College, your weekly guide from Education Quest Foundation, here to help you plan, apply, and pay for college one step at a time. I'm your host, Gage, and today I'm happy to be joined by Trina Cress, a career coach at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Hi, Trina. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, happy to be here.
Now, one of the most beneficial things I did during my college experience was actually seeking out career services and trying to set myself up for success the best I could for my career after college. So, today's episode, we're just going to break that down. So, Trina, can you just start us off by describing how students can make the most of their coursework and their major choices to align with, whatever their future career goals are?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, especially as students are thinking about, okay, I like my major. I work in liberal arts, so we have a lot of history and English and political science, and they feel good about their subjects and the courses they're studying. But then there's always that question of, is that practical? How is that going to apply to a career in the future? And what I love about college education and liberal arts especially is that degrees are so personalized. So, of course, if you're choosing a major, you're pursuing it, that's great. You're likely taking certain courses that you have to take, but really you have a lot of flexibility within that to choose electives that are based on this side interest. You can choose a minor to pair with the major. And then that's the question too of like, what should be my minor? What should be my major? So if you're pursuing a linear path, or if a student is pursuing a linear path, then obviously, say like accounting or nursing, you have a specific degree you have to pursue. If you're not pursuing a linear path, you have a lot more flexibility to pair together your interests and kind of figure it out as you go, which is where I was. I was in English education major because I was told if you wanted to make money in English, you had to teach it. And within a year or two, I found out, no, I just really like English. I don't want to teach it, or at least not at the high school level. So I was able to kind of adapt the courses that I took and what I did and my experiences outside of the classroom to be able to personalize that education. So just knowing that you have options can feel overwhelming, but that's where talking to an academic advisor or career coach can help make sure your options are still in line with what those career goals are, or at least helping you figure out what the career goals
Hmm.
you have that you're pursuing.
Yeah, I know some students complain about, I have to take so many electives, this and that. But if you give your chance to explore, I mean, I took ancient Greek, which like I'm not going to use that, but it was still fun and I learned a lot about history. And honestly, it taught me a lot about like communication and storytelling. So I
Yes.
think there's something you can gain from all of your electives, and they may not, may not appear on your piece of paper, your degree at the end, but like you said, it gives you
Hmm.
the chance to really explore. So I love that.
Yeah.
Now, why is it valuable turning a little bit more towards career-oriented things? Why is it valuable to complete
Mhm.
multiple internships during college? And how can students find those opportunities?
Yeah, so let's talk about internships and experience more broadly. Because I mentioned that and you get to personalize your degree. Part of personalizing that is what you do outside of the classroom. So for some people, that is going to be a traditional internship. You apply, it lasts a semester, maybe just fall or just spring, maybe just summer. But there's other ways to gain experience beyond those traditional internships. Some of my most impactful experiences was I had an on-campus job and it actually had a lot of leadership. I was supervising my peers, and it kind of launched my career even after I was out of college. So knowing that experience comes in a lot of forms. Yes, that's internships, but when we talk about internships, we use that as an umbrella term that can mean experiences in a lot of different contexts. So depending on what that experience is, will determine where you look for it. Career coaches are a great place to start to know, okay, do I need to use my campus job board here? We use Handshake, but there's lots of others. There's more general ones like Indeed, maybe even LinkedIn. But really, the success of any job board is the experience you're interested posted on there. And you probably don't know that. So, talking to a career coach and talking about why you're wanting to gain experience will kind of help decide, okay, where are we going to look for that type of experience? And the idea of doing multiple is you're trying things out. You're trying out an organization, a type of a job, and it's not likely going to be that you try one and then that becomes your forever job that you do after graduation. So trying out different things will help you say like, okay, I liked this aspect, I didn't like this other aspect, and then you can kind of pivot and keep adding those on. And then you also just have a lot of connections that you make in each experience that can become future referrals or mentors or people you can reach back out to and ask questions of. So great reasons to do multiple internships and also branch out beyond just internship and just get experience in all the different ways it can come.
I know it's probably biased, but I did do an internship with career services and I absolutely loved it. And like you said, like you make so many more connections than you would think really. Because that's when I got
Mhm.
connected to my career coach and here we are today. So
Yes, love that.
now students can also do job shadows. And I know maybe if a student is new to this, like they might not know really the difference between, job shadowing and doing an internship. So can you just kind of explain that difference and like the insights students can gain from, even spending just one day with a professional?
Yes. It's almost like a stepping stone. We talk about like your unrelated club experiences or jobs are what lead to that next job. That's what a job shadow is, or something that we call an information interview. So instead of having to jump right into trying out that organization for an entire semester or trying out a specific job for an entire semester, you can try it out for a day, for half a day, for a couple hours by doing something like a job shadow. The information interview is especially helpful in careers where maybe shadowing isn't always possible or isn't the most helpful. Some careers, like there's medical professions that are great for shadowing. You get to go see maybe different procedures or how they document what they're doing, that type of thing. But there's also jobs that, like, if someone shadowed me, depending on the day, I might just be sitting at my desk working. And that's going to be a really boring job shadow. So if you have jobs that you're interested that might have some of that, like, well, I don't know what that work would look like, an information interview is a great way to get that insight. Talk to a professional in the field. Find out what their challenges are, what they like about the field, how they got started, what education or experience led them to that career. It'll give you some insights that you might not get otherwise if you're just searching for that career and finding information online. So, both of those, job shadowing and information interviews, are great ways to do that information gathering that leads to, okay, I know I want experience in this field, or I'm ready for that next step or that bigger commitment.
Much like you, I love English. And I also thought of being an English teacher late in my high school career. And I did. I job shadowed an English teacher, one of my favorite English teachers. And I could tell that, she loves what she did, but that's where I
Mhm.
was really able to figure out like, maybe this actually isn't something that I'm interested in. And it's really helpful to make those realizations before, you're locked into a major or something. Not that you can't
Mhm.
change, but it does definitely set you up for some success.
Right. And it's personalized application of it. I think that happens a lot when I'm talking about career exploration and what do you want to do with your life. Students will look up information and think, okay, that sounds good, but what does that actually look like for you? So
Mm-hmm.
job shadowing, you can kind of envision yourself like, can I see myself doing this every day? Or if you do an information interview, it's like, well, that sounds good to you, but that doesn't match my personality or that doesn't fit
Mm-hmm.
with who I am. So I always encourage, like, if you get advice in those info interviews or from parents and other mentors, ask them why. Why do you give that advice? And then you can kind of decide, does that actually apply to me and who I am?
Yeah, yeah. Now, turning towards networking, which is a big thing that, gets talked about all the time at career services and I mean just the professional world in general. Um, what are some practical ways that students can begin networking with, their professors, their advisors, but also potential employers while they're still in college?
Yeah, I'm going to break this down really simply because networking can be this big, scary thing. But I think you even introduced it in the way you phrased the question is how do you network or connect with advisors, professors? That's the first step. When you're meeting with your academic advisor, which students are required to do when they're enrolled in a program, you're already making those connections that professional conversation and language that happens eventually in networking. So, talking with your academic advisor, asking questions of your professors when you're in classes, stay afterward and ask a question, visit office hours. Those are all great ways to make sure those connections are established. So, you could ask them for advice or a recommendation or something in the future. But it's also giving great practice to then when you go to the career fair or maybe a panel event where professionals come in and talk about their jobs and their professions. So it's all stair stepping. Everything I think we do in career is a stair step. So interacting with classmates and professors is one step, and then you just keep getting better and more comfortable. And a big part of that is show up. We are always trying to think, how do we get students to show up to things? Not because we just want our numbers to look better for the event to be successful or appear successful, but we hear from students that when they do show up, especially to those lower entry networking type events, panel events, students get so much value from them. They learn connections. They meet somebody that maybe becomes someone they could shadow in the future. So we want students to experience that value, and you can't if you sit it out. So make sure that you're showing up to those opportunities.
Yeah, I was so terrified before my first career fair. And once you get in there and you start going, I mean, all that just fades away. It's really just,
Yes.
talk to other people and especially professors. Like I still am in contact with many of my professors now, and I know that I
Mm,
can, reach out to them for questions or for references just because I was able to build that connection in college.
yes, that's amazing.
Now, beyond just academics, what are some key professional or soft skills that college students should really focus on developing to prepare
Mm.
for the workplace and their future careers?
Yeah, I have my opinions on this, but I will first of all start with there's actually a National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE, that does research on this. They connect with employers directly to say, what are the skills and competencies that you're looking for when you're hiring, and then communicating that to colleges. So that when we talk to students about here's what needs to show up on your resume, here's the types of skills you need to think about. Am I building those in my part-time job or my campus job? Then we can know with confidence the types of skills that we're suggesting. So I'm just going to name those 8 because I think it's helpful to hear them directly. So career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. In addition to encouraging those 8 competencies, NACE also does routine checking in with employers of like, okay, based on all these skills, this year, what are you valuing the most when you hire entry level professionals? And then the next year, they ask again. Um, Routinely, the skills that show up at the top are things like problem solving, working with a team, written communication specifically, taking initiative, work ethic. What I find important about that is I also hear it reflected in the employers we talk to and invite to our events. We'll ask them directly, what types of things are you looking for? What experience do you want? And they will say some version of, we don't need students to have specific experience. We can teach them how to use our lab equipment, how to do this particular thing with the software. The part that is harder to teach or takes maybe too much investment is how to just work with a team, how to communicate write professionally. Sure, they could teach that, but that's not what they want to spend their time doing. Those are the things that students should be learning in the classroom, in their internship, in their part-time job or club involvement. So those are important skills. And what I love about them is they're reachable. Everybody is building those, but it takes a little bit of that reflective work to say, what am I building? What skills am I using in this specific opportunity? And that's why my opinion is self-reflection. That self-development, I think, is one of the most important skills because it's what makes you aware of where do I still need to grow and what am I doing well?
Yeah, speaking of communication skills, those are super important when it comes time to interview, which is something that I know a lot of students and I dreaded the first few times I did, and it got better with practice. But what advice do you have for students who want to improve their interviewing
Mhm.
skills and really make that good, like strong first impression with employers?
Yes. Continuing the stair step going. So if you've talked to academic advisors, you've talked to professors, maybe you've been to a networking event, interviewing is just that next part of the process. It's a conversation. And I don't mean that to make people feel like they don't need to prepare for it, but I just want it to feel approachable. The people interviewing are humans. They have opinions, they want to make connections, they want to have conversations. So I think a lot of times there's this pressure from students saying, I want to answer this correctly. I want to talk about a weakness, but I need to frame it as a strength. Like you're not trying to play mind games with people. You're trying to be able to communicate about yourself and your skills and your strengths in a professional way. So building that is the conversations you're already having. You're already practicing that. And then when you come meet with a career coach or use resources like there's Big Interview or other tools for practicing interviewing, you're just practicing how do you talk about your stories and your experiences to show who you are. What are your interests? What are your skills and your strengths? That's ultimately what employers want out of the interview. They don't want the correct answer. They're trying to get to know you and find out, are you a good fit for our company? Are we a good fit for you? And really, you're interviewing them. A lot of times we end up applying to jobs that we're not even positive we want. It's not until the interview and we meet the team and have those conversations that we ourselves find out, will I accept this job if I'm offered it? So helping students understand that and kind of reframe it a little bit, it lowers, I think, the stress and the feeling like you have to make a good impression. You just have to be yourself in a professional way, but it's a lot more approachable than I think most people realize.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Like it really is like an open two-way conversation. Because I remember my first few interviews, I was super scared about I was like, we're sitting across the table and I'm being like interrogated, like it's a police investigation or something.
Yes.
And something from, I come from the theater world. And so something one of my theater professors said to me one time about auditioning, which is basically an interview, is
Mhm.
that, you know, they want you to succeed. Like they're looking for someone that's the perfect fit too. And so something just to keep
Exactly.
in mind is that as much as you're nervous, they're probably nervous too. They want to find their good candidate. So yeah, I'm glad you brought
Mhm.
that up. Now, when it comes to, you know, you graduate, you've been doing all this career prep and everything, you got it all done. What can recent graduates, new grads do to stand out from other applicants when applying to jobs in their field?
Mhm. Yeah, I think my perspective of this is influenced by the fact that I am meeting with students who are trying to stand out from the other students I'm meeting with. And of course, I want everybody to win. So, my advice is um, working on the experience that you're gaining, being aware of that and being able to communicate that clearly. So instead of comparing yourself and saying, okay, how do I stand out from these other people? You're trying to say, how can I communicate myself in the best way? How can I be very clear about the experience that I've gained, the skills that I have that meet the qualifications of what I'm applying to? So that's always my goal is if you're applying to a job and you say, yes, I have these skills, I have experience that does that, does your resume show that? Does, if you have to write a cover letter, does that show that? If you make it to the interview, are you using stories and examples that show that you have that experience and those skills. That's ultimately the goal, is just be aware of what your strengths are, what your skills are, what your experience is, and be able to communicate that clearly. And really doing those things does help you stand out as an applicant, because not everybody takes the time or makes that effort for those things.
Sticking with the recent grads, how would you describe like the current job market for those recent college graduates? And are there any trends that they should be aware of?
Yes, that is such a huge question, since that can really vary by industry, obviously. Each industry has different things. Back when I graduated, teaching was a booming thing, where there were thousands of applicants to become teachers, and it was very competitive. Teaching is a little bit easier to get into now because of how high the need is. So there's shifts by industry and all of those things. If you're interested in finding where those shifts are, there's US Bureau of Labor Statistics. So they're always putting out information about general employment and unemployment rates and things like that. There's also, I mentioned NACE. NACE has a job outlook that they put out every year, that will show by field, types of employers, and things like that. So that can be a great resource. Something that I love is ONET. So onetonline.org. They, especially if you're looking at specific careers, you can look at career information and find their employment trends. So, what is the projected growth for that field in the coming years? And what are the projected openings in that field? So, for students who are earlier in their college education, they can use that information to maybe help inform their decision around, what do I want to major in? What careers am I interested in pursuing? If you're later in your career getting ready to graduate, those things can be helpful to maybe help understand if you are going to take extra steps to really find the right job, the right fit, the right organization. Having been someone that graduated from college in the '08 recession with an English major that's not always considered the most marketable, I would say don't focus on the trends too much. Like, sure, if they factor into making a choice and stuff, do that. But don't get discouraged by that, because we are seeing like some challenges in the labor market right now. But use the resources that we're already providing for you. Meet with a career coach. Use those strategies of networking, getting on LinkedIn, personalizing your application. Those trends don't have to be your personal story. I was able to get a job immediately after graduating, and get really good experience, even though a lot of people had difficulty in '08. So using your strategies and not using the job market or those trends to feel discouraged or to hinder your progress, and kind of taking those next steps, doing what's within your control.
Yeah, I know you brought up career coaches and some of those other resources, so I just want to dive into that just a little bit deeper. What campus resources, like you said, career centers or alumni networks, are often underused by students, but can actually make a big difference in career prep.
Yes, obviously, career coaches. I want students to come meet with me. We routinely hear from, so if I meet with a graduating senior and that's the first time we've met, every single time they say, I wish I would have used this sooner. So, really, career coaches are for freshmen too. So, I know it feels like a big ask to think about your career as a freshman, but do that, because even if you're not ready to think about the career 4 years down the road, we can talk about what are the ways to gain experience, to get involved on campus, to start exploring what are your interests and what skills are you building. So, certainly career coaches, but I would say anything connected to human support. You will always have access to the internet, to AI, like those are all great resources. It's not usually till a student leaves college that they think, oh, that career coach that I had access to is actually a really expensive resource to pay for myself. That
Hmm.
free mental health counseling that I had access to as a student is really expensive to pay for myself. So just knowing the value of the people they get to meet with use that. It is an expensive resource when you leave college, but one that you have free access to and can really, really benefit from, all serving kind of different purposes and have different ways. We also have a lot of student mentorship programs that can do like well-being, financial mentoring, all things that in college may not be the main priority, but it's a really missed opportunity if you never meet with those resources.
Yeah, I was that student that waited until the my senior year. And I don't want to scare people.
Which
Like I
is
still did
okay.
get yeah, I got a lot out of it. But I do wish I would have
Yes.
started earlier, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Trina, just to wrap us up, could you offer just one final piece of advice to students who are trying to chart their course from college to career? What would it be?
I think my big suggestion is to just stay open, stay curious, especially for the majors that we work with, the professionals that we connect with. We always hear about these nonlinear paths. Has someone started as one major and then they ended up down the road in a career that was totally different than that major? Students knowing that, I think that feels ambiguous and scary. We all want the known. I was so jealous of my like nursing friends who had a specific degree and a specific career path, but I was not that person. So if you are and you have a clear path, that's amazing. If you're not, that's okay. Staying curious, being open, looking at what are the opportunities around you, and just following that curiosity to the next step and the next step. I couldn't even imagine the career that I would be in now. Because I didn't know it existed. I never went to see my career counselor when I was in college. And that happens a lot, that you don't have to know all of that. But if you're willing to talk to people, to be curious about their paths, how they got there, be open to take a course that's maybe a little outside of your element, you never know which thing is going to lead to your thing. And we don't have to know. Just be curious, try things, and kind of follow the path wherever it leads.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that was all my questions. Thank you, Trina, for joining us.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
And to our audience, if you ever need help with anything college related, you can contact an Education Quest office near you for free help. You can find our contact information or schedule an appointment at educationquest.org. Also, I'll have some of those resources that Trina mentioned linked down below in the description. And while you are there, make sure you sign up for Countdown to College. It's a weekly email that is filled with college tips and tricks. And finally, just help us get this message out to as many students and families as possible by subscribing to this podcast on your favorite platform and hitting the like button on this episode. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.